So now that you've got your front with your piping, you now want to do the back. So you've got two options. You can either just do an envelope fold, so no zip, which would mean having two pieces of fabric, 2/3 of your original width, so that you've got a little bit of overlap. And on the edge that's going to be on the fold, where you're going to pop your cushion pad in, you want to hem that. So I would turn it over 1/4 of an inch, and then either 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch, and so along, and do the same on both sides. And then it's literally just placing one on top of the other. And then once you've done that, you then just sew all the way around again on the same line that you've just sewn to add your piping. And then that would be your cushion cover finished, turned in the right way around. Or you can add a zip. So to add a zip in, the dimensions that you will need are, you want the same height as your fabric. So if you've got a 16-inch wide cushion here, then you need two pieces of 8.5 inches. So it's half the width, add on 1/2 an inch, which gives you enough allowance to add the zip. Okay, so here are my two pieces that I cut out of my fabric. You place them then right sides together, and depending on the length of the zip, so if you've got a zip that is shorter than your actual height of your cushion, then you want to sew a seam line, or sew the two pieces of fabric together, 1/2 an inch seam allowance, and you want to sew with quite a short stitch to where the teeth start. So you can use a pen and mark this. So place that in the middle. So a short stitch up to where the teeth would start, back stitch, then change your stitch length to say a 5, which is like a basting stitch. Carry on sewing to where your stopper would be, then change back to a short stitch, sew a couple, back stitch, and then sew off of your fabric. Okay, so we've done the basting stitch so that when we add the zip, later on we're just going to unpick that. So having a nice long stitch just helps that process. So it'll look something like this. Then take it to the iron and fold it out and press your seam allowance open. And now we're going to place our zip face down, so with the pulley facing downwards, and match up your stoppers to where you had marked your stitches starting and stopping to the short and long. Now, the easiest way to do this, because once we've attached the zip here, we're going to then sew onto the right side of the fabric a rectangle, which is where the zip opening will be. And obviously you don't want your zip moving. So the easiest way to now do that is if you can get the double-sided tape. Quilting tape is wash away tape. Like this. And just place that on to your fabric here. If you haven't got any of this, then you can just pin, or you could hand tack, so just a nice long stitch just to secure your zip in place. So lots of different methods, or you can just pin it. It's entirely up to you. This stuff is great though for any zips. It just stops the fabric moving around. Okay. Press that down, and then it just pulls off like normal double-sided tape. And that just pulls off. Okay, and then you place your zip down over that. And what you want to do is make sure that your teeth match the middle seam line. Can be a little bit fiddly. I might come back to you. nice and tight. So now on this side, I'm just going to place a couple of pins just to secure it in place while I'm sewing. So I'm just going to mark where the stopper starts, and this is where I want to start and stop my rectangle. And what we'll do is put a little bar tap. We'll go backwards and forwards over these particular sections at the end, because that's where it'll take the most amount of stress when you're opening and closing your zip. Okay, there we go. So I've just popped a few pins on there. Move my zip down, my zip down just a tiny bit. Now, still got my zipper foot attached. I'm going to sew down. I'm not going to sew too close to this middle line, because if you sew too close, then you won't be able to open and close your zip very easily, and you want to have a little bit of a flap there so that your pulley is kind of hidden by the flaps of the fabric. So I'm going to sew about 1/4 inch out. Okay, so I'm just going to start that. So I've placed my needle in the down position, still got my zipper foot on, and I'm just going to sew a straight line down. Now my zipper pulley is here, so it is going to be a little bit tricky to go past that. So I'm just going to go slow and steady. If this is your first cushion, don't worry if you go a little bit wonky. If you use a coordinating thread, then it shouldn't be seen too much. So just... So I've placed a pin here at the end, just where my stopper is. So I'm just gonna stop there. Needle in the down position. I'm gonna turn my fabric then 45 degrees, and I'm gonna go across, back, and then across again. But I'm gonna go either really, really slowly or use my hand wheel when going over the teeth, even though they're plastic. Sometimes your machine doesn't like it, you could end up breaking a needle, so don't go full pelt with your foot on the pedal. Just go nice and slowly, just one stitch at a time, and you might just need to help it over that lumpy part. Okay, so that's not too bad. Right, so I think that looks right, and now I'm going to reverse. Again, just really slowly over those teeth, and then back again. Just need to give it a bit of a hand, literally one stitch at a time. And then lift my presser foot, turn 45 degrees, and then back down the other side. Turn again 45 degrees. And go reverse. And then back again. It. So needle up and pull my fabric out and cut. Just take those little pins out. Okay, so there you can see, hopefully, a little rectangle all the way around my zip. So now that I've done that, obviously the zip's inside that. So get your best friend, the seam ripper, out, and what you want to do really carefully now is just rip those stitches open using your seam ripper. So just carefully where you've sewn. And back again, that's it. And then just pull out any thread. So I must have sewn that in a white thread earlier. That's fine, just pull those out, they'll just pull out. Okay, on there, you've now got a zip. So let's see, where are you? Oh, where my cushions is. So I've got quite a small zip on here. If you've got a zip that goes all the way, if you bought a long zip and it actually extends past the width of your cushion, don't worry, place your zip on and just sew your stitches to about 1 inch in, your short stitches to about 1 inch in, and then do your long stitch. And what you can do then is just create your own bar tacks. Don't worry about these stoppers, because actually I can just chop these little bits of zip off now because they're not needed. Yeah, so you can just basically trim it down and create your own rectangle where you want your opening to be. So if you've got a longer zip, exactly the same process. Go to about 1 inch in either side of your cushion with your small stitch, change to your basting stitch, and then go back to your short stitch and do the exact same process and just chop off the excess. So now that we've done that, you get your cushion cover and figure out which way you want your fabric, and you are just then placing your backing over your top one, right sides together, pin all the way around, and now you're just going to sew back over where you've sewn previously with the piping. I've pinned all the way around my cushion now, and I'm just going to sew all the way around as close as I can to that piping foot again. Okay, right. That's it. And then once you've done that, what you can do is just trim the corners of your cushion. If it's a bit too bulky when you turn it out, you can just trim those edges. So I'll just turn it out first and then I'll do that after. There we go. And just snip off any little ends that come through. So there you go, one finished cushion cover with piping. Let's trim off any edges there. So I'm really pleased on how this cushion's turned out. So we've got the piping all the way round, and this is the back with the zip. As you can see, it's got it actually hides the zip really well. Okay, good luck with yours.